The reason you are not wealthy is not because you don't earn enough. It is because everything you earn disappears, and the system you are living inside was designed to make that happen. King Midas had the same problem. He could turn anything he touched into gold, and he was starving. That is not a myth. That is a description of your paycheck, your raises, your promotions, and the persistent quiet feeling that after all this work, after all these years, you should have more to show for it. By the end of this teaching, you will understand exactly why income and wealth are two completely different things, and you will have a framework, ancient, proven, and immediately applicable for escaping the trap that has been consuming everything you earn. A prayer for financial freedom and the building of real, lasting wealth awaits you at the close. The great deception of the income trap is this. The world told you that a good salary was the destination. Get a degree, get a job, get promoted, get a raise. That was the roadmap they handed you before you were old enough to question it. Follow the path, collect the paycheck, and at some point the wealth would arrive. That was the promise. And the world was giving you directions to a house that does not exist. Here is the diagnosis, and it is brutal. Salary is a flow. Wealth is a store. These are not the same thing. They are not even related things in the way most people assume. A river flows constantly. You can stand inside it for 30 years, and when you step out, you are dry. The water was always moving. None of it was yours. Your salary works exactly the same way. It arrives, and it moves. Through rent, through groceries, through car payments and insurance premiums and streaming subscriptions and the slow, invisible expansion of your lifestyle that happens automatically, without your deliberate decision. Every time your income goes up, the flow gets larger, the drain gets wider, and the gap between what comes in and what actually stays looks almost identical year after year. You are not accumulating, you are processing. You are moving money through your life on behalf of everyone else, the landlord, the bank, the lender, the retailer, and mistaking that movement for progress. This is not a spending problem. This is an architecture problem. The structure of your financial life was built to make you a conduit, not an owner, a pipe, not a reservoir. And the most dangerous quality of this trap is that it is invisible from inside it. Every raise feels like advancement. Every promotion feels like momentum. The numbers in your account get larger for a brief moment after each deposit, and you feel the surge of it. But that feeling is the flow, not the store. And within days it is gone again. The account is back to where it lives, and the cycle begins again, unchanged. This is not a personal failure. This is a design system, operating exactly as it was intended to operate. The world tells you that income is wealth. The world is giving you a map of a territory that does not match the ground you are standing on. Here is where the story of Midas enters, because the oldest gold story ever told was not written as entertainment. It was written as a warning, embedded inside a myth, so it would survive long enough to reach you. And the warning is specific. King Midas received the single greatest income-generating capacity the ancient world could imagine, the ability to produce gold from any touch. And the story records, with complete clarity, what that unlimited income production actually produced. Hunger, loss, and a king on his knees, begging to undo what he had asked for. Ovid wrote the story of Midas in the Metamorphoses, Book XI, not to entertain, to preserve a financial truth inside a story everyone would keep repeating. Midas, king of Phrygia, had done a generous thing. He had found Silenus, the old companion of the god Dionysus, wandering lost in his kingdom. He sheltered him, treated him with hospitality, and returned him safely to Dionysus. In gratitude, Dionysus made Midas one offer, one wish. Whatever the king desired, it would be granted. Notice the structure of that moment. One wish, every option in existence available, and the full freedom to choose with awareness of what the wish would produce. This was not a trick. This was a genuine, generous offer from a god. And Midas, standing at that crossroads with the whole world available to him, asked for the power to turn everything he touched into gold. Notice the word, everything. Ovid chose that word deliberately, not precious things, not Things I choose. Everything. Without condition. Without limit. Without discrimination. The ancient word in Ovid's telling carries no restriction, because Midas placed none. He wanted maximum production. Unlimited generation. The income potential of a god, with no ceiling and no conversion plan. Dionysus granted the wish, and for a brief, extraordinary moment, it seemed magnificent. Midas touched a branch. Gold. A stone. Gold. The doorpost of his own palace. Gold. Ancient accounts describe a king moving through his world in something approaching joy, watching everything around him transform at the brush of his fingers. By any measure, his capacity to generate value was infinite. His income potential was unlimited. He was producing more than any man alive. And then he sat down to eat. The bread in his hand turned to gold. The wine hardened at his lips. The warmth of his daughter became the cold, rigid surface of metal when he reached for her. Ovid's telling of that moment is not dramatic for theatrical reasons. It is precise. Because the precise point the story makes is not about greed in the abstract. It is about this. You can generate unlimited wealth and still have nothing real. The touch that produces gold cannot simultaneously be the touch that nourishes life. You cannot live inside production without conversion. The flow is not the store. Croesus of Lydia, the historical king whose wealth so dominated the ancient world that his name became synonymous with richness itself, arrived at the same lesson through a different path. Herodotus records in the Histories, Book 1, the famous encounter between Croesus and the Athenian lawgiver Solon. Croesus was, by every ancient account, the wealthiest ruler the ancient world had known. The gold alluvium of the Pactolus River, documented by Herodotus and by Strabo in his geographical writings, ran through the heart of his kingdom and had produced wealth that exceeded anything his contemporaries had seen. Croesus was proud of this. He called Solon to his court and asked him directly, who did Solon believe was the happiest man alive? He expected to hear his own name. Solon's answer was the most important financial principle recorded in the ancient world. Call no man happy until he is dead. Not because life is suffering, because wealth measured at a single moment in time, wealth that rests on a flow rather than on an architecture built to survive. Disruption is not a foundation, it is a position, and positions change. Croesus did not understand this. He dismissed Solon as a fool, and when Cyrus of Persia arrived, the position changed. The flow stopped. The architecture beneath it was not strong enough to hold. The income had been vast. The structure had been fragile. The story of Midas is the story of Croesus, is the description of your salary. Production without conversion. Flow without store. Income without wealth. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your city or country in the comments. I want to see how far this ancient wisdom is traveling across the world. Here is what most people miss entirely. Income and wealth are not on the same spectrum. They are not early and late phases of the same journey, where wealth simply arrives when enough income has been accumulated. They are structurally different realities. Income is what arrives in your life. Wealth is what remains in your life when the income stops. You can have 40 years of high income and zero wealth. This is not theory. This is the documented reality of millions of working professionals who retire after decades of good salaries and arrive at the end of their working lives with almost nothing structurally in place. The salary was real. The wealth was never built. And the tragedy is that the salary felt like building the entire time. Here is where most people fail at the first level. They measure their financial health by their income number. They say, I make good money, as though that sentence describes their financial position. But income is not a measure of financial health. Net worth is. And net worth is not what you earn. It is what you own minus what you owe. Most people have never calculated that number honestly. They have seen the paycheck arrive and assumed it means something about the foundation they are standing on. It does not. The paycheck measures the river. Net worth measures the reservoir. Benjamin Graham, the investor and Columbia University professor, whose framework built the modern science of value investing, and whose teaching directly shaped Warren Buffett's entire financial philosophy, identified this pattern with a precision that has not aged. He wrote that the investor's chief problem, and even his worst enemy is likely to be himself, not the market, not the economy, not the employer who refuses the raise. Himself. The behavior of treating income as a proxy for accumulation. The behavior of consuming what should be converting. The behavior of measuring progress with the wrong instrument. Notice the word enemy. Graham did not write obstacle. He wrote enemy, because the person who consistently confuses income for wealth is not simply making an honest error. He is actively working against himself with every financial decision that treats the flow as a destination. Midas was his own worst enemy in exactly this way. The wish he made was the wish of a man who believed that unlimited production was the same thing as unlimited wealth. The dinner table proved otherwise. Stop and ask yourself something honest. If your income stopped today, not eventually, not in some future scenario today, this week, how long would your life continue unchanged? For most people, the answer is measured in weeks. That specific number of weeks is your actual financial position. The salary is the river. The number of weeks you can survive without it is the reservoir. And for most people, the reservoir is nearly empty. Here is where the trap becomes invisible. Every time your income increases, your lifestyle expands to meet it. This is not a character flaw. This is not a discipline failure. This is a behavioral pattern that operates below the level of deliberate decision in the vast majority of people at every income level. You earn more and you spend more. The car improves. The apartment upgrades. The restaurant becomes a habit rather than an occasion. The vacation extends. The wardrobe expands. And by the time the lifestyle has fully adjusted to the new income level, which happens faster than most people realize, the percentage of that income converting into assets looks almost identical to what it was before the raise. The numbers are larger. The proportion is unchanged. This is not spending too much. This is the architecture of consumption functioning exactly as the system designed it to function. The system does not want you building a store. The system wants you converting your income into other people's assets, rent into landlord equity, payments into bank profit, purchases into retailer revenue. Your salary trap is someone else's wealth engine. Aristotle identified this mechanism in his Politics, Book 1. He called it Chrematistike, the unlimited pursuit of income generation, as an end in itself, without natural limit and without connection to any genuine purpose. He distinguished it sharply from Oikonomia, the management of a household toward real flourishing. The person living inside Chrematistike is always generating and never arriving. The appetite expands with the income. The satisfaction point is always slightly beyond the current position. There is no natural stopping place, because the goal was never real wealth. The goal was more income, and more income feeds a larger version of the same machine. Consider what this means in practical terms. The person who earns $200,000 a year and spends it all is, by Aristotle's measure and by the mathematics of net worth, in the same structural position as the person who earns $40,000 and spends it all. The lifestyle is different. The foundation is identical. Both are standing in the river. Neither is building the reservoir. Here is what most people miss entirely at the third level. The deepest consequence of the salary trap is not financial discomfort. It is structural dependency. The dependency of a life that requires your continuous physical presence to continue functioning. You show up. You perform. The income arrives. You stop showing up. The income stops. And if the income stops, everything constructed on top of it stops with it. The rent. The payments. The lifestyle that has quietly expanded to absorb every dollar you produce. Midas was the most extreme illustration of this dependency. His income was infinite, but it required his hand. Remove the hand, and the transformation ceased. He was the machine. He was the only machine. And that meant that despite his extraordinary capacity, he was one moment of incapacity away from having nothing at all. This is the definition of fragility. And it is the precise definition of the modern salary. Warren Buffett described the escape from this fragility with what remains the most precise financial principle in the modern record. Rule number 1. Never lose money. Rule number 2. Never forget rule number 1. The logic beneath those rules is asymmetric. Losing 50% of what has been built requires a full return just to reach the starting position. The protection of what has already been converted into assets is mathematically more powerful than the increase of what still flows through the income stream. The asset that compounds without disruption held for the long term, untouched by the need for short-term liquidity, is the inversion of the Midas hand. It produces without requiring your presence. John Bogle built his entire contribution to the financial world on exactly this principle. The index fund he created through Vanguard is, in architectural terms, the Pactolus River, a structure that deposits value continuously, quietly, without requiring your daily decisions, without requiring your expertise, without requiring your presence. It is not exciting. It does not feel like the golden touch. It accumulates. And in the long arc of time that Munger described, that quiet accumulation does what no salary ever could. It builds the store. But here is the deeper principle Midas discovered the hard way. The inversion of the touch has to begin before you feel ready. Not after the debt is cleared. Not after the income stabilizes. Not after the next raise makes it more comfortable. Because the moment of comfortable readiness is a position the system was designed to prevent you from reaching. The lifestyle always expands first. The debt always regenerates first. The right moment is the permanent position of everyone who never built anything. Charlie Munger said it plainly. The big money is not in the buying and the selling. It is in the waiting. But the waiting only produces results if there is something to wait with. And what you have to wait with is only what you converted before the flow consumed it. The person who begins building a small asset base this month, with whatever modest percentage is honestly available, and holds it and waits, arrives at a different destination than the person who waited for the right moment and never moved. The ancient wisdom says this. The modern record confirms it. Start building the store. Start now, with what you have. If this teaching is shifting something in your understanding, if you can see now that there is a different way to build, tap the like button right now. It helps this message reach the people who need it most. And if you want more of the wisdom the Midas Code contains, subscribe to this channel. There is much more coming. Practical application begins with one honest number. Here is the actionable framework, and it requires no special expertise, only honesty about where you are right now. Step 1. Calculate your actual wealth number today. Not your salary, not your monthly income, your net worth. Add the real value of everything you own with genuine financial substance savings accounts, investment accounts, retirement funds, property equity if any exists. Then subtract every dollar you owe, the full remaining balance of every loan, every credit card, every mortgage, every debt. The resulting number is your true financial position. Write it down. Most people avoid this calculation because they fear what they will find. Do it anyway. The number does not judge you. It orients you. And you cannot begin to navigate from a starting position you refuse to acknowledge. Step 2. Measure the conversion gap. For the next 30 days, track every dollar that arrives and every dollar that leaves. Not to feel guilty about what you spent. To see clearly, without defense, the actual rate at which your income is converting into owned assets versus flowing out as consumed expenses. If 90% of everything that comes in is leaving, you are a pipe. You are processing money on behalf of everyone else. The gap is not a failure. The gap is the specific thing you are going to change, starting this week. Step 3. Set the conversion before the consumption. Before rent, before groceries, before any other expense is touched. A fixed percentage of every dollar that arrives, whatever your current situation honestly allows, even if it begins at 5%, even if it begins at 3 moves, immediately into a separate account, designated only for asset building. This is not an emergency fund. An emergency fund is defensive. This is offensive architecture. The Pactolus deposited gold into the kingdom before Croesus spent it. The conversion happens first. Everything else adjusts around what remains. Step 4. Identify one income stream this week that does not require your continuous presence. It does not need to be large. It does not need to change your life immediately. It needs to exist. A dividend-paying index fund you begin funding, even in modest amounts. a skill or knowledge you can build into a product once and distribute repeatedly. You are looking for the first structural evidence that value can move in your life without your body attached to every movement. This is the beginning of the inversion. The Pactolus flows without Croesus' hand. Your asset base needs to begin doing the same. Step 5. Apply the inversion test for 90 days. Every significant financial decision for the next 90 days passes through one question. Does this increase the store, or does this increase the flow? Not every answer will favor the store. Rent is necessary. Groceries are necessary. But every decision gets made consciously, with full awareness of which direction it is moving, the architecture of your financial life. At the end of 90 days, recalculate your net worth. Whatever the number shows, it will have moved. Small movement is not failure. Small movement is proof that the direction has changed. Midas did not need a different gift. He needed a different direction for the one he had. This is not complicated. This is ancient wisdom rewritten in the language your situation requires. If you have made it this far, you already understand something that most people who share your income level do not. You understand that the salary was never the destination. You understand that the flow is not the store. You understand that Midas's trap was not the wish for gold. It was the absence of any architecture that could hold what the gold was meant to produce. There is more encoded in this ancient framework than one teaching can contain. The Midas code goes deeper than income. It touches debt, the psychology of loss, the trap of comparison, the hidden cost of waiting, the principles that Midas and Croesus and the ancient world discovered at great cost, and embedded in the oldest stories of gold and wealth and their consequences. Each of those principles deserves its own teaching, and this channel is where those teachings are going to live. Subscribe now, and you will be notified every time a new lesson is released. Hit the subscribe button right now. Share this video with one person in your life who is working hard and wondering why the numbers never seem to change. What comes next will go even deeper into the financial principles encoded in the ancient code. The story of Midas has more to say. You need to be here when it does. Before we close, I want to invite you into something different. This prayer is not a formality. It is an alignment. Close your eyes if you can, or simply align your thoughts with mine right now. What comes next is not just words. It is an invitation. What you heard today is not just knowledge. It is a direction. And before you move on to the next thing, let it settle. Let it become something that lasts longer than the video. Father, we come before you with honest hands, not the hands of people who have arrived, the hands of people who are learning to see clearly, perhaps for the first time, what we have been doing with what you gave us. We have lived inside a system that measured us by what we earn and never asked us what we kept. We have worked genuinely hard, for years, for decades, and watched the income flow through our hands and disappear. We called that progress. We called that a career. We did not know we were standing in the river and wondering why we were dry. We confess that we have spent what should have been converted. We confess that we told ourselves we would start building when the moment was more stable, when the debt was lower, when the income was higher, and we watched years pass inside that waiting. We confess that we let the lifestyle expand to meet every raise, and mistook the comfort of that expansion for the security it was not providing. We see it now, and we are ready to build differently. We ask you for the wisdom to distinguish the flow from the store, for the discipline to set the conversion aside first, before the lifestyle consumes what was meant to become something lasting, for the courage to write down the real number, the net worth number, and to stop hiding behind the salary that has been making us feel better than our actual foundation deserves. We declare that we are not servants of the income trap. We are stewards. We are builders. We are people who understand that the wealth you placed within our reach was always meant to accumulate, not simply to pass through. We declare that the inversion of the Midas touch is available to us right now, not the touch that transforms and destroys, but the conversion that builds and endures and outlasts the next paycheck and the next bill and every disruption the system sends our way. Provide for us patience in the long arc of building. Remove the anxiety that causes us to spend before we store. Protect the small beginnings we are committing to this week from the voice that tells us they are too small to matter, and give us the grace to wait as the ancient river waited, as Munger described with what we have built, until it becomes what we were always capable of creating. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Go in peace. The wealth you are building is not measured in what arrives this month. It is measured in what remains when the flow stops. You are free.